Hey team, welcome back to another episode of the Strength Game Podcast. I'm your host, Nick O'Brien, and this is episode number 38. The Strength Game is a weekly podcast dedicated to discussing all things physical culture with the coaches, athletes, iron enthusiasts, and experts deeply embedded in the strength game on both sides of the profession, both as coaches and as competitive athletes. I want to thank everyone who has liked, shared, commented, and subscribed to the show. Your continued support allows us to bring on more expert level guests and highlight more individuals in the strength game, just like our guest today. Also want to thank Cerberus Strength for bringing this episode today for free. Cerberus is an organization that puts the athlete first and is actively working towards providing the best quality gear at an affordable price. Owned and operated by active lifters, Cerberus has quickly evolved into a global brand symbolizing quality and trust. Their ever-growing product range is used by the top athletes around the world at the highest level of competition, and every single Cerberus Strength product has been designed with performance in mind with the highest attention to detail. If you're in the market for the highest quality strength conditioning gear and equipment, be sure to check out CerberusStrength.com and use promo code STRENGTH_game to save an extra 10% off your next order. And in this week's episode, I am joined by Coach Todd Hammer. Hammer is the general manager at Union Fitness in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Coach Hammer joined Union Fitness in 2019 with over 20 years of Division I strength conditioning experience, including the director of strength conditioning roles at the George Washington University and Robert Morris University. Additionally, he spent time as a head strength coach at Marist College, assistant coach at George Mason and the Citadel, graduate assistant at VCU, and intern at Pitt. Coach Hammer has presented at over 50 professional clinics and seminars, has been an adjunct facility member at 3 universities, and has been published over 100 times, where his articles are featured on EliteFTS, Muscle and Fitness, Men's Fitness, as well as other publications. He was nominated as the NSCA Strength Conditioning Coach of the Year in 2018 and has been awarded the Presidential Award for distinguished achievement during his tenure at RMU. Hammer is a competitive powerlifter with over 2 decades of experience on both the national and international stage, with personal bests of a 595 squat, 475 bench, and 560 deadlift in the 181-pound weight class. He's also an outdoor enthusiast, going back and forth between hiking and cycling, where he's completed the Rachel Carson hike 10 times and has ridden his bicycle from Pittsburgh to Washington, D.C. 10 times. He's got a long resume, too long to actually list off, but like I said, I'm excited to have him on the show today. So with all that said, let's get in the game with Coach Todd Hammer. What's going on, everybody? Today, I am joined by an honorary Iron Hoya who's been around in the strength profession for over 2 decades, but won't mention his age at all. Someone I've been trying to get on the show for a long time. Someone that's been at the top of my list since I first started this. Todd Hammer. How's it going, Coach?
It's going well out here in Western PA. You know, it's summer.
Oh, yeah.
Life's good.
It's always nice to have a little bit of break time off, but like I said, I'm excited to have you on today. I want to hop right into things, kind of get into your strength journey. So, like, how did you actually start getting involved in sports leading up to competitive powerlifting?
So, growing up, I came from a Western PA football family. My grandfather was actually Bill Cowher's coach. There's a cool interview with Bill Cowher where they said, who were your early mentors? And he says, Coach Hammer, my grandfather. And then my father played football at the Crafton Little Cougars with Bill Cowher, and kind of Western PA football was everything. And I was always the small kid. So I got to high school. My dad said, you can't play football and lift unless you get bigger and stronger. Go lift weights. And I mean, I think like so many of us, you fell in love with the process of lifting. And I started lifting, and I just loved it. It was just my thing. And, I go back to the Muscle and Fitness days and reading Muscle and Fitness, and Kevin Levrone was my guy. Like, that was my favorite bodybuilder back in the day. And I remember I read the issue of Muscle and Fitness with Junior Seau. Man, I must have read that 100 times. I remember thinking about like a junior Seau, how that dude kept himself physically fit all the time. And that was one of the, rarely am I affected when a celebrity dies. But when I heard that news, I remember I was actually driving to a group and NPR covered it. Man, I was shook to the core. I was like I wouldn't be where I am without Junior Seau. Like I never met the man. I don't know the man. It's a small world, athletics. I probably could have, but man, I never met him. My wife even said to me, and this stuck with me, but because there's a lot of truth to it. She said, "Did you ever tell Junior Seau how you felt about him?" And I said, "No." And she said, "Why not?" I said, "Well, I don't know." She said, "It's a small world. You could have reached out to him. Like you definitely know a coach who knows a coach who knows him." And it reminded me, just to be a better person, like reach out to people who have influenced you and say, "Hey, thank you." Because we don't know people's stories. We don't know their struggles. And so I got into coaching, bounced around as a young lad in it. I started under Buddy Morris, which is, obviously the buzzword. Oh, Buddy Morris. And learned a lot from Buddy about strength conditioning, but also learned that Buddy's the only person that can do what Buddy does, how Buddy does it. I think a lot of people think they can. And I think, a mistake in this profession I've seen throughout all those years is you look at your boss and go, that's how he does it. I'm going to kind of replicate that blueprint, and you lose yourself in that process. And I did that, whether it would be from using Westside approach to training to, some of the mistakes you make in the industry. But I think the key is to be who you are and learn from each coach and take the good, the bad, and the ugly from each coach, and then evolve into the coach you are. And as I've gotten older in this profession, as I've gone down the road, what I found very interesting is that, I have Cody Miller, who was most recently at Clemson working with us here now. I got Charles Jasper, who's been all over the place coaching with us here now. One of the strength coaches from Pitt, Frank Brown, who interned for me, lifts with us here. And I look at those young dudes, and I mean, there are young ladies. Leah, one of my former interns, is here, and Fawn, one of my former interns, is here. And what I'm now learning from them, and how the mentor-mentee relationship many times gets it's more of a two-way street. You know what I mean? Cody knows more about training than I do, hands down. CJ is better at working on the fly on the floor than I am, hands down. And so as I've progressed and as I've aged, me and CJ were just working with a football group, and I said, CJ, you're going to be the old strength coach soon, just so you know. Like, you blink, and all of a sudden people are like, tell us about wisdom. And you're like, I forget everything I've ever learned. So that's kind of, what brought me to where I am today. And I got the opportunity to leave college strength conditioning. I was at George Washington University as director and traveling, doing all this strength and conditioning stuff you do. And I got the opportunity to come back to Pittsburgh and take over a gym that a good friend of mine had built from nothing to one of the coolest places on earth. And it was just too good of an opportunity to turn down. I mean, I just walked back in here, and Kevin Oak, one of the best lifters right now in the world, was just warming up. And I look over, and we have, Cody Miller, one of the smartest strength coaches I know, training someone. We probably have 8 powerlifters in here right now, all squatting, 600-ish at, noon. That's kind of cool. We host 2 powerlifting meets a year. We have probably in our gym 75 competitive lifters. Find me a gym that has 75 competitive powerlifters and is connected to a fitness center, which has people just, the CFO of our parent company is just chilling on the elliptical machine. And then we have 2 universities that train with us, right next door. And, you got their hockey teams over there training, having fun. It's, we just have a very unique situation. So that's kind of where I am today. No longer in a college setting. I'm more like an associate AD now. No one knows what I do and if I do anything, just like all the associate ADs we know. And that's somewhat of a joke.
Yeah, but that one hits home real hard. That's cool though, because I mean, I know a few of the people there at Union. Obviously, yourself, Curtis has been on the show before too, and
he's a man.
And there's a lot of stuff that goes on in there. And I know you guys have expanded pretty quickly too, to hear about all the different things that are going on. I mean, I think when I talked to him last, it wasn't 75 competitive lifters. I think it was smaller, and it seems to be growing by the day. So that's awesome to kind of see the atmosphere that, and all the people, all the coaches and lifters and then just general population that are kind of flocking to that area. So that's awesome. I know I want to get into it a little bit later as we kind of go through this talk and like discuss what you actually got through from like your experience in college athletics going in now into the private sector, because there are some nuances that are different, but there's a lot of things that you can take away from your coaching experience and being a director that directly influence what you can do now. Kind of touching on a little bit your own like training journey too. So how has your training evolved? Are you still competitive in powerlifting yourself? And I know you said like the process of being involved with the barbell and training really got you into a career, into that profession as well. But how has your kind of career progressed personally for your lifting? And then kind of how does that influence your coaching?
So I came up from that West Side approach to training. It was, and back then there was no raw powerlifting. That wasn't a thing. And I'll be honest, I think powerlifting is better off now than it was when I started. It's more accessible. You have a lot more women in it. It's not just all about the bench press. And listen, there were some good things back then, but it's in a better place now. But then, I've competed in a handful of Olympic weightlifting meets. I've done 3 or 4 strongman competitions. And now I'll say my age, I'm 45 years old. I said I was doing my last meet. I think it was 3-4 years ago. And then a friend of mine was doing a push pull. He's like, just come do the push pull. I was like, all right. So I did that. And then last year I got here and some people started pressuring me like, come schedule a meet with us. And I had a meet scheduled for, I think it was March 23rd, 2020. That meet didn't happen. The world shut down. So I'm still training. I'm still lifting weights. I'm still having fun with it. I still want to compete a few more times. I have some numbers in my head I'd like to hit. I still think I have a little bit left on the platform. And as I've aged, like, I'll be honest with you, my training, no offense to Mike Boyle, but I can't stand when he writes an article about things men over 40 shouldn't do. Like, don't squat, don't do this. And I'm like, I do pull-ups 4 times a week. I squat. Right now I'm squatting 5 days a week. Why? Because Ryan Nozak did my programming for the last 13 weeks. That ended, and I was like, Curtis was actually going to take over some of my programming, and he tore his bicep. And I was like, he has a lot on his plate, so I haven't said a word to him about it. I was like, I'm just going to have some fun for 4 weeks. And so basically every day I'm going in, I'm doing a different version of Olympic lift. I'm doing some version of a squat, hitting some pressing, some pulling, whatever, and I'm out, 45 to 60 minutes, 5 days a week. I don't know what it is. Monday was 5x5 front squat. Today I'm going to hit 1x20 back squat. Just something. And so right now I wouldn't say I'm training heavy, super heavy or anything special. I'm just having some fun training. I would like to compete again. I'd like to have fun with it. But you know what? 2020 taught us one thing. We don't control the future. Ride the wave. And, if the wave can let you go the right direction, keep riding it, brother. And if it can't, well, that's okay. Next wave's coming, grab that one. So my lifting right now is fun. My lifting right now is what I want it to be. I also just had a 5-day bike ride to DC, which kind of didn't end up happening because the guy I was riding with got hurt. So it ended up being a 2-day, 160-mile bike ride. And then this weekend I have a 20-mile hike. So obviously I'm doing some things that aren't going to help my lifting, and I'm still mountain biking twice a week, which is not going to help my lifting either. So I'm having fun, man.
That's the best part about it, though. I think just having fun with it. I think at one point in time, your competitive career always kind of either comes to an end or just the goals completely shift.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I've found myself not going through a long career such as yours so far, but I mean, there's different points in time in my year where the goal has been completely different, whether it's like, all right, well, I want to want to be competitive at nationals and I want to make it there, to, all right, well, I just want to train and I want to be involved in the sport in somewhat and still kind of at least get one under my belt and kind of test my mettle at the local level again. So
Yeah.
I think as long as you're involved and kind of doing what you want to do, that's great. Like to hear, like, I know you're hiking all the time and you've done a bunch of bike rides from Pittsburgh to DC and stuff too. I can't imagine going that far. I haven't tapped into the endurance side of anything yet. I'm gonna hold that one in the back burner for, that's gonna be in the back of the cards for later.
And it's a balance. I joke all the time. My mountain biker who likes to lift weights, or my weightlifter who likes a mountain bike. I don't know, but I enjoy both. And I'll tell you what, every Friday morning at 6:15, you'll catch me at the same trails. Me and the same group of riders. We're gonna hit 10 miles of good, solid up and downhill mountain biking. So I like that. I'm having fun with my training, and I'm not taking it too serious right now. I look at some of the people in here. Said Kevin Oaks in their training right now. The dude's a freak. He's an 800-pound deadlifter. I mean, Curtis is a freak, 800-pound deadlifter. I always end up being the guy deadlifting next to them. And in this gym, I mean, you can work up to a 495 deadlift, and you're still in the way of people. Most gyms, you put 5 plates on a bar, heads are turning, right? If you put 5 plates on a bar, people are getting upset that you're in the way. And that's a good thing, because it means that there's strong people and there's people to chase and there's people to see what they can do. So, I tend to right now in my training here, just gotta stay out of the way. We do have one female lifter who, Kelsey, is just a beast, and she worked out bench 260 a couple weeks ago. So I walked over and hit it for 5. I was like, I just want to make sure, Kels. I didn't want you stronger than me, Kels. And she said, I will be. And then walked away, and I was like, damn it, she probably will one day. But she's also 25, 26 years old, whatever. She got a few years to go.
A few years for sure. That's cool though. I was wondering this too, kind of as we were talking about like all the different things and like how your career's kind of shifted from very competitive, like West Side base in powerlifting to now kind of dabbling and doing those things. Would you say there's a benefit as maybe a young coach or someone new in the profession of being very competitive in a sport or being like kind of driven towards their own specific type of training so that they can kind of get under the bar, see what it feels like to get on the platform versus like kind of doing what you're doing now where you're doing some endurance stuff, you're doing some 1x20, you're doing like some Texas method stuff where you're kind of dabbling everything, but you're not really focused on one. Is one kind of better than the other as a young coach, or is that kind of come like just with age and experience?
It's a hard question because they both have their place. And the problem is the young coaches who I've met who dabble, aren't committed to anything. And they never learn that, like, I'm going to bleed for this. You've been in it when you're training, you bleed for something. I mean, legitimately, blood, and you don't care. How many times I've been at a deadlift bar, it's like, whose blood's on the bar? I don't know, but you're up, go. When you pull, the young dabble coaches at times, they, oh, well, I'll just move on. Or they hit a roadblock and they stop and they move. Well, I want to work on my Olympic lifts now. Well, why? Because I've plateaued at my bench. Well, shut up and go back to the bench and figure it out. And I know I've seen that so many times, that mistake of I'm just trying to diversify or I'm resetting something. Like, shut up and train. At the same time, I think on the flip side, people get blinded by their emotional connection to their own lifting as a strength coach. So I did it. I was a West Side lifter. Wide stance squats is the answer to everything. Wide stance, narrow squat. What do we need? Front squat. Maybe we'll hit some front squats later. I don't know. So I think it's that push and pull, and you have to have the wisdom, which most young coaches don't have, to say West Side is not the answer. Front squats are not the answer. Kettlebells are not the answer. The answer is what's going to work for that specific team athlete group. One of my frustrations with coaches is when I hear a coach judge another coach who's never seen that coach coach. Look at that program. I had that Fresno State's program. Oh my God, it's trash. Have you ever been in their weight room? No. Do you know their facility? No. Do you know how much time they have to lift? No. And shut up. because you just don't know what's going on in between those walls. And so often in our industry, it's like when 5 baseball players from one team pulls hamstrings and Twitter goes crazy. Well, let me tell you why they're pulling hamstrings. They're not doing whatever. Who cares? Nordics, they're not doing glute bridges. They're not doing whatever. Or you have no idea. Maybe the head coach is running the crap out of them. Maybe they aren't getting rest because there's other issues. Maybe their travel schedule. Maybe you don't know. And knowing what you don't know and knowing that you don't know, to me, is where you can begin your process of truly opening your mind to what's best for this athlete, what's best for this person, not what do I like. Olympic lifts are such a thing with that too. I know people like, I can't teach Olympic lifts, so I don't use them. Well, then you're a bad coach. Because instead of saying, I'm going to learn an Olympic lift, you're saying, I don't know it, therefore I can't teach it. Well, learn it. It ain't rocket science. Just get up in the air, sort of. I know that's not perfect, but there's some truth to that. So I think being honest with yourself on what your limitations are, what your weaknesses are, and then complimenting, obviously once you can hire people, complimenting your staff with that, or not just your staff, but also your resources, your connections. Who can I reach out to talk to about Olympic lifts? Who can I talk to about shoulder issues? Who can I talk to about the hip? Who can I talk to? And learning, like I said, and that's where those mentor-mentee relationships start to flip on their head, where once we get in a science of training, I just go, Cody, deal with this, because I don't know. And to be honest, I don't really feel like taking up space in my head with it. I'd rather go, right now I'm reading a book about Russian oligarchs because it's interesting to me. So I think just knowing your strengths and weaknesses and trying to be wise in your decisions.
So that's what associate ADs do. They read
Yes.
Some of those Russian books on the side.
Most associate ADs I know didn't read anything.
Oh man,
I have to tell this story real quick. I had a boss one time. Dude would come in at like 10 a.m. and I would get there like 5. And it'd be like 2 and I'd be done. I'd be leaving. He'd be like, oh, early day. And like, he was an associate AD, so I didn't like freak out. But I'll be honest with you. I try to not let anger take over. But I want to punch him in the face. Like, I've been here 5. No, it's not an early day. You had a late day. That's my take on associate AD.
Oh man, I'll just leave it there.
Good answer.
I'm still in college, so. Hey, but you said a good point, and I've always taken this away from you when I've talked to young coaches, or even myself when I was kind of getting stuck in the profession and starting out, was everybody wants to talk about program design and wants to start talking about what sort of periodization looks like, what's going to be paired with what. But at the end of the day, and I know you've written tons of articles on this, and it all comes down to facility and then like limitations, like you're saying. So it's either coaching limitations or equipment limitations. I mean, there's a huge difference between like even my university that I'm at currently, where we have 21 racks, to where I just came from a few years ago at Loyola, we had 4. So I was like, all right, so now I'm going to get the same size team in. I'm not going to be able to run the same program. And the same as people attacking and bashing people on Twitter saying that this program is this. Well, you don't know that coach. You don't know the limitations. You don't know the circumstances. So that's the first thing that needs to be addressed. But I mean, outside of that, I try to avoid all those things and really, like you said, work on your weaknesses within the area, try to improve the staff around you. And those are all great things to kind of be able to surround yourself with more people, but understand that everybody kind of has different gripes, and facility is the number one thing that kind of gets added into it. And then it's limitations and factors like that. So kind of touching on a little bit more of now your kind of role in the profession. So what has been kind of the transition for you? I know there's a lot of different things. I mean, even being a director at 3 different places for you, each stop was different. Even having different staff members is a completely different sort of program or scenario that happens. But what's kind of been the biggest transition point from leaving college to being in the private sector?
This is going to be a terrible answer. I'm happier.
It's a great answer.
I loved college athletics, and I really do, and I had fun with it. I bumped into a guy I coached with. He was a soccer coach last night at the grocery store, and he was let go from his job and just actually got another job. And just I still love being involved. I love because I think there's so many people that do have their hearts in the right places, but it's still a university, and as we know, universities love red tape. They love slowing things down. They love overthinking things. Um, Whereas, I'm learning now when you get to the private side, it's like, hey, go make the business better. I think the big difference is I have such a unique job here. The facility I'm in charge of here, my parent company owns a lot of buildings around here. And more so than anything, they wanted me and the person before me even to create a fun place to be, a cool place to hang out. And Casey did that. He did a great job with it. And then I came in and I think having that college experience has really helped me with this job because, you know, in the college, you're always finding ways. Let's be honest here. Part of your job is entertainment. Why? Because you want athletes who are engaged in what you're doing. You want athletes who are engaged with you, with the lift, with the program, with everything. So part of my job here is entertainment director. I feel like I'm the entertainment director on a cruise ship half the time because I'm like, all right, what fun things do we have going on to keep our people engaged, whether it be our people in our lifting classes, whether it be our people in our personal training, our fitness center, our lifters, and each group brings, just like each team is different. How are you going to motivate the soccer team versus the women's lacrosse team versus a wrestling team? You better not use the exact same thing on all three teams. Now, there might be some similarities, and you're all on the same team, and we have our lifters who know our fitness center people. That being said, you're going to use different techniques and tactics, and you mentioned Curtis. So Curtis oversees a lot of our class lifting stuff. So with Curtis, we sit down and it's like, hey, the Powerful is our most popular class. Powerful is like CrossFit without being so dumb and no Olympic lifts. There's actually more thought process, and I'm not insulting every CrossFitter. I have friends who are CrossFitters, but there's a systematic approach to it. And it's like, okay, great. Well, we have this thing 5 days a week, but how do we keep each member engaged? What are they working towards? So maybe we do a push-pull. Maybe we do a cookout. Maybe we do different events for them. The next one we have coming up is our fundraiser for Out Athletics. It's an LGBTQ plus organization. And we're doing a class followed by a comedy show. We have 3 local comedians coming in, tent set up, mic set up, go. And they're probably going to roast me and half the people that were there. Everyone's just donating to this organization to help these athletes. But I think taking what I've learned in college and understanding that every lesson should bleed through every ounce of you as a human being and everything you do, because the lesson from work is going to affect your home life. The lesson from your home life is going to affect your work because it's about relationships. It's about getting people on the same team. And I was recently talking to a new young lady we hired as one of our trainers. I forget what we were talking about. And I said to her, listen, how people say don't talk about certain things at work. I said, I want you to bring everything you have in your life to this job. I want you at your job. And I don't want you being a mini me. I want you taking every ounce of what you have and putting it into each person you train. And I want you to learn, grow, and expand, be open-minded, have enough control of your ego that you're willing to do that. But I want every single ounce of you. And you may say, I have an idea that's totally off the wall. And I'll say, great, that's where we are at. Off the wall is my place. And that's what we look for. And that's where I think college athletics has really helped me mold into this job well. And the differences are on surface pretty big. The similarities are actually pretty big as well, because it's just motivating people. It's human relations. At the end of the day, you motivate your teams. You work with your coaches. You deal with that new assistant coach that thinks they know everything about strength and conditioning, and they're 22 years old, and they're like, my strength coach back at blah, blah, blah state said, and you're like, okay, I have to deal with this person now. You deal with that, and that's your job. And that's the same as my job here.
That's cool. There's a lot to unpack there, but I like what you're talking about, especially when you were discussing like one of your new trainers coming in and just being authentic. You want someone to come in the staff and be authentic and be yourself. And I know you've written on it and you've talked about it as well. Like there really is no work-life balance in this profession. And there's going to be a lot of demand that's put on strength coaches, whether it be college. I mean, even private sector, like there's times where you're going to do events like you're talking about that are probably outside of the normal scope of hours that you set. But just being present when you are at home, being present when you are at work, and understanding that the two are going to bleed into each other, and that's perfectly fine. But I think college just, for whatever reason, our definition of the job is kind of servant, and
Hmm.
it's not really serving the team. I know Donald said that before, like I serve the team, like I'm not your servant.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of places have kind of got that confused where you're either sitting guarding a desk forever or you're at like you're basically on a leash for the head coach all the time. And then most people, myself, and if you're not in football or basketball, like you have multiple masters as well. So you're sitting getting pulled in different directions. So being able to have someone like yourself and have a mentor mentee relationship, bounce ideas off and be authentic and understand that you can take days off and stuff like that when you need to, that's huge. And I think that's definitely one thing that's probably attributed to why you're so much happier outside the college profession, being in a private sector and being able to avoid that red tape for sure. And just, hey, you got an idea, run with it. It's like, I don't have to run it up 10 people's channels just for it to get shot down during the process. It feels like we're trying to pass a law like in Congress at this point. And all I want to do is get the door to lock. it's,
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
like, seriously. But what kind of touching on the engagement stuff and motivation, I know you're able to put on a lot of things. I know some bigger schools, again, like maybe football and basketball, are able to have a lot more opportunity to do things to engage athletes, maybe outside the weight room and put on cookouts and stuff like that. But most smaller schools aren't able to do that all the time. If you would go back into the college side, not saying you would, but knowing what you know private sector wise and building on all these kind of classes and different kind of like events and stuff, how would you say, how would you kind of try to make some of these things possible in the college setting?
I think first off, if I went back to college, which I mean, who knows? Never say never. I would loosen the reins. I would lighten up a little bit. And I think that's part of, too many strength coaches take themselves too seriously. And I think too often as strength conditioning and Brian Mann, who's, a good friend and done a lot for me in this industry, he's talked about this where he's yelled at a kid for being late and then the kid starts crying and says, my mother has cancer. I just got the phone call. And you're like, oh, sorry, you're 5 minutes late for a lift. That's a pass. And he says, when something like that happens, how you feel inside. So I think one is loosening the reins, not just on your athletes, but on your assistants. I had a great assistant one time. I'll never forget. We had to be there 5:30, and 5:30 means 5:30, not 5:31, 5:30. And I was on dry erase board writing the quote of the day, whatever. Who cares? And this person walked in at 5:31. And I said, good morning. How are you today? He said, it's going to be one of those days. And I snapped. I went nuts. I'm like, one of those days, get the hell out of here. I don't want you ruining our athletes' day with that attitude. We don't have those days, right? We only have great days. I'm probably expletives flying, spit flying. My face is red. And listen, I think there was a place for that. Be there at 5:30, not 5:31. I believe in that. I still say, hey, if you say you're going to be somewhere at 5:30, I mean, we all make mistakes as you learned today. Hey, you're going to be somewhere at noon, be there at noon, not 12:20. I did it to you today, right? That being said, I think, understanding that conversations can go a long way. You don't have to demean someone. It's to make it fun. It doesn't have to be a huge event. Now, I mean, we used to do cookouts at Robert Morris, just go buy 100 burger patties over at the grocery store for, they're nothing, probably not real meat. and we would just do cookouts, and we didn't have a budget for that. But find ways to be innovative with it. We actually, one of our athletic trainers, his brother owned a bar. I think it was his brother, maybe his brother, whatever. And we wanted to do like a cookout thing. And believe it or not, I got permission from our compliance people. I could feed the athletes this one night and have everyone down in weight room just for a big cookout. And the athletic trainer's brother wanted to use the weight room. So I made a deal. Hey, you can use the weight room with the athletic trainer when he's here, but you got to give us some wings for this cookout. So he sent 100 wings over, whatever it was. I don't even remember. But, if I find ways to like work with those around you. And again, let me reference Brian Mann. He's talked about it. You're at a university. If you work at a university, there are crazy smart people around you. Why are you not using them? Strength coaches are trying to break down statistics. Well, you have 350 kids who are statistics majors and 28 professors. And you can make a call and be like, hey, do your kids need practical experience? Yes. I have 1,000 bench press numbers here and I don't know what to do with them. I have functional movement screen scores. I have whatever the hell you're testing. Who cares? And then all of a sudden, now you have a statistical analysis of what's going on within your team because you spoke to the statistics department and these young people needed the experience. They need the practice of doing this. You brought them in. Boom. They did that for you. We did this had to be about 4 or 5 years ago. There was, some issues going on in the country around race. And we did a thing where we brought in a Muslim group people who were of the Islamic faith to speak with some of our athletes, just to say, hey, we're all one. Just because one has a different faith doesn't mean we're different. And I think that can not just create a nice environment, but also it humanizes you as a coach. Now they know you're a human being. You're not just that meathead that wakes up at 4:30 and eats books and bench presses and whatever else we do. Humanizing them, saying, hey, this is something that's important to me. And now we've created inroads on campus. This was a fun one. Here's a great idea. We completely stole this from Moth Radio Hour. If you never listened to it, it's awesome. Basically what a Moth story slam is, they show up in a town, everyone's name goes in a hat, they pick a topic for the night. The topic could be 4th of July. And everyone in the room, they pull names and they say, you have 5 minutes to tell us a story about the 4th of July. So we did that. I went over to the guy who ran the theater people on campus and said, hey, I want to do this, but I want to make this a diverse group. So I brought the athletes, he brought the theater people. So it was like night and day. And they got up and told stories. And we had kids crying. I mean, I have athletes getting up there like, the day my mother died. And I'm like, what? Oh my God. And then I had a theater kid go up and tell a similar story. And the athlete going, I didn't know you. I wasn't connected to you, but you had that too. You're like, now we have a connection. And so I don't, just finding ways to use what you have at your resources. What's her name that was at Baylor? Can't think of her name right now. One strength coach at Baylor. She once said, don't ask for better resources until you're a great steward of your current resources. And I always like that. Are you using everything at your disposal? None of us are. Don't ask for a bigger brain. Use your brain better. And I like that. And I think as strength coaches, we just need to think more outside the box. A friend of mine's working with Texas football now. And he texted me and said, do you know the guy at Texas football? I said, no, I don't. And he goes, you would love him. You would love them, and he gave me a list of the things they talked about with their first intern meeting, and not one had to do with programming, exercise selection. It was about life. And I was like, and I texted him back, said, let's all be friends. So hopefully we'll be friends, because I don't know the gentleman there, but sounds like a pretty cool dude to me. So
I love that.
Yeah, learn more.
Yeah, I know yourself. You do a lot of reading and extracurricular stuff outside of strength conditioning. And I know you're a big proponent of it, because I think myself as well, like it ties back in to coaching. And absolutely. I mean, there's a lot of life lessons that you're able to take away from it. I mean, you gave a lot of great examples about just kind of outsourcing some of the things, using your resources at your disposal. Like, I don't want to discredit those. Those are all awesome. And I'm definitely going to look into some more of those, because I definitely, being a young coach too, you're quick to complain. It's like, all you need is just all I need is some money, or all I need is this. Like, but there are a lot of different innovative ways to kind of get those things across and actually have access to those if you just reach out and ask people or have conversations about it. But like, I love talking about just kind of all the different things that go into training and coaching and like just life, all those different things. I think those are more important, and training is just kind of a vehicle for it. So kind of shifting towards almost like the strength conditioning side effects and like almost the success that's going on. How would you kind of define a successful strength coach? Because we talk about life, we talk about strength, we talk about a lot of things. And for a sport coach, it's wins or losses. Like, have you in your career found anything that if I'm doing this well, I feel like I'm making a difference, like I feel successful? And like from other people's point of view and outside perspective, like how can we kind of make sure the profession understands that that's how we think success is defined as a strength coach, rather than are they getting stronger, are they getting faster, are they only doing those things? Because there's a lot of intangibles I think that we weigh into as a strength coach that are, if not more important than just that, because any program works.
Yeah, absolutely. And who said it? You can judge yourself by a strength coach when you're walking down the grocery store aisle and you see that former athlete. Do they run the other way, or do they come up and give you a hug? You know what? I've coached thousands of people. I got both sides. I know someone to run the other way. I know someone to give me a hug. I've been to some of their weddings. Some of them probably don't like me, and that's the nature of the business. But and I don't remember who said it, and I really wish I could right now. But I think, I was recently doing an interview with a PhD candidate at this school far away. She called and said, "Hey, would you do this interview with me about strength and conditioning?" So why did you begin? And I said, every strength coach comes on here, goes anywhere, they say impact. I want to make an impact. And I'm going to call them BS right now. It's not true. It's not true. Do you know why we all got started? Because it's fun. We like lifting weights. It's fun. We weren't thinking impact. When we were 22 years old, we were having fun doing clean squats. This is awesome, man. Oh, I get to teach these. And then this feedback loop started happening. You realize that you got to get stronger. They appreciate it. All of a sudden you build a relationship, and then I think we grow into that. And I think often we as coaches don't understand that we had to grow into that. We think that we had it all together in our head. We didn't. It was fun. And then we realized, hey, we can have an impact. I forget where I heard this, statistic years ago, and it said, it was something like, students feel that here are the three people they can talk to. And like number two was coach. Like whoever their coach was like their second most important person in their life. And you learn as you begin to help an athlete progress and the student move forward, all of a sudden you learn that I'm having a huge impact on them. And then it feels good because they're coming to me and asking questions and I'm helping them. And then they say, why'd you get into coaching? And what your brain clicks back and goes, impact. Impact you can't measure. How many weddings have you been invited to? How many, I love the fact that in my gym, I have two former athletes right now working for us here. One has a full-time job. He just does it because he likes hanging out here. I mean, that dude's been graduated 10 years from college, but he works our front desk one day a week and loves it. Free gym membership. So to me, I think you can't measure that. And yes, vertical jump, bench press, squat, clean, blah, 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 blah. You can list all these ways that we're deciding what made them a better athlete, stronger, less injured, blah, 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 blah. And the reality is we don't even know which one of those is the most important. Is a squat. If you squat more, to me, if you have a good, clean front squat and it's pretty strong, you're probably pretty resilient against injury. You're pretty strong. You're probably pretty healthy. Your mobility is probably good. That's a good way to test it. So, okay, I guess we'll look at good, clean front squat. Check plus for making the athlete better. Health, can they run 100, 300 shuttle, pick something, who cares? But did you get them to believe in something greater than themselves? Did you get them to realize the power they have in the world? I'll give you a great example on that. When I was at Robert Morris, they had hockey. Recently, they dropped hockey. I like the president, but I think how they handled dropping hockey I didn't like it. They did it on May 26th. No one's transferring on May 26th, too late in the year. We know that, right? There was usually, there's sniffings like something's going on. They hosted the Frozen Four 2 months prior. 2 months prior to Frozen Four, they hosted it. Like, this is a tough sport to drop, right? There was no hints. There was no, like, we're doing, I've been to schools when they drop sports, and usually it's like, we're going to research things. And then everyone's like, someone's getting cut. Someone's not going to be here next year. We all know it. They just like, boom, dropped. We're done with this sport. And many of the former student athletes started speaking up. Some of the current student athletes started speaking up. I was proud of them. They were learning their own strength and their own power. Do you remember a few years ago when that transfer rule got set into effect? It gave them a little more freedom. They didn't have to go to their coach. They could go right to the administration, said, I'm out. I was in a meeting and I said, what a great opportunity. And people looked at me like I had a third head. And I was like, we should now do exit interviews with every kid. We should have 5 set questions, and we should figure out why, did you feel athletic training, served you well while you're here? Did you feel strength and conditioning? Did you feel academic support? And maybe we'll find a cause. And again, egos have to be set aside, and we have to sit down and say, if every kid goes, because my strength coach failed me, that was a big reason why I don't want to be here. Okay, we're not going to fire you. We're going to work with you on being better. It's not that hard. But I got my butt chewed out for that one because everyone thought I was an asshole because, well, I'm trying to point blame. I'm like, no, I'm just trying to solve a problem. We can't control that rule. We know that rule came into being. So let's work within the rule to do the best we can to service our student athletes. How many schools did that? My guess, probably not many, because that takes a reflection. Those associatees don't want to look and be like, did I really live up to what I said I was going to do? Did I really serve the student athlete? Did I really care? I will give, I came from Robert Morris University, where very much the athlete was told what to do, to George Washington University, where the athlete had a lot of power to tell the administration what they wanted. And man, it was night and day. And I learned that neither was 100% correct. The athlete must have a voice. I thought at times at George Washington, this is not an insult, it's just the culture of there, the athletes had too much say in when they could lift. They'd say, well, I don't want to lift at 6 a.m. Well, that's when that's when the team lifts. What are you going to do? Well, we have to discuss that. No, we don't. As opposed to Robert Morris, where it was, shut up, we're lifting at 6 a.m. And the athlete had no voice. And I think, it's like homeostasis. The best approach is somewhere in that middle, waving up and down. And sometimes you're going to underride it a little, and then you got to come back and override it and just make those adjustments. So I don't even know where I got started with that answer, but that's my answer.
No, I like it. I mean, I'll let you ramble on forever because there's plenty of things I haven't taken out about it. No, we started kind of talking about like why people got into it, and you started talking about like the impact. And realistically, yeah, we got in it. It's like, what profession can you wear shorts to work all day and never have to wear a suit and tie unless you're trying to get another job? That's why I always thought it was weird. It's like, why am I wearing a suit to interview for a job that they know I'm going to wear shirts and a short for? Like, what?
Never putting a suit on again.
I always thought that was interesting. But
it's weird.
No, that was cool because I think it develops over time. And I never thought of it like that, where as soon as you start to kind of click in the profession, you realize that the books aren't really as important. Like the life lessons you're going to learn are more important. Developing relationships, how you communicate with people. And then as you kind of see the feedback, you kind of see what happens when an athlete leaves and maybe comes back, and realize that even if you were just teaching them how to lift, like the conversations you had on the side do make an impact. Then you start to realize, all right, well, maybe it is more than just fun. Like I am actually doing something beneficial. But like the exit interviews are awesome. I mean, I stole that from Matt Nine when I was at Salisbury, because we used to do them as a department, and I kind of tweaked them as much as possible. And I hunt people down to get them. I was like, they're anonymous, and I do them at the end of every season. And I'm like, if you write nice stuff on there, you better say 2 mean things. Like that's what I need to hear. Because I think most people don't want to do it just because of the humility side of it. They don't want it to check their ego. They think that what they're doing is great. It's like, I think what I'm doing is good, but if I do the same thing next year, it's definitely not going to be as good as it was the year before. So
the kids are going to change. You have a different, you're I made a mistake with the women's basketball team a few years back. Now I got away with it because it was a good team, but my seniors were like my go-to human beings in life, still are. I talk to at least one of them every day, if not all of them. And I relied on them so heavily in the weight room where I could say, ladies, today, I need you to follow me, whatever we're doing. And they'd be like, team, we're with you, Hammer. Let's go. And we'd be like, we're going to run barefoot across whatever, just, something stupid. And I guarantee if I said to seniors, I need you with me, they'd be like, let's go. And then they graduated and I realized I was a little lost. I relied too heavily. And I actually, ironically, spoke to the associate AD about this. I said, I made a mistake with that team. And I said, luckily, the kids that followed were so good kids. But I never had that relationship again like I did with that group. And it was my fault that I relied too heavily upon that relationship. And like you said, I can't repeat last year, this year, because I have different kids. And again, why I'm not judging a program? Well, the program is also going to be affected by the kids. So you have a different group of kids. Maybe they're not as attentive. Maybe they're not as engaged. Maybe they're more engaged. Maybe they have mobility issues. Maybe they're weaker. Maybe they're, a lot of internationals. That was one of the things that happened with us. We just had this influx of these international kids. That changes. They don't lift weights in Europe. Like that's not a thing, So when you get all these internationals, like, all right, we're gonna do cleans, and like, clean the room. Like, oh God, you don't speak English that well. So you have to adjust on the fly based upon all those factors.
Definitely. Yeah, there's a ton of factors that end up going into pretty much everything you do. So repeating anything is definitely not what's going to happen. But I mean, we're dealing with humans, and I mean, it's a people first business. So if that's not the first thing you're thinking about, and how to, like you said, adjust on the fly, which is constantly happening. I can't remember a day that everything on the card went perfectly planned. Like we were on time. On time is a good one too for some of my teams. We were on time. We finished on time, and we went through everything perfectly without a hiccup. Not a chance.
Yeah.
Hey, so touching on, we talked about it kind of in the beginning that, and you said it yourself, like it's a two-way street between mentors and mentees. Like I think we both can agree it's a very important process, and especially when you're getting involved in strength conditioning, that's probably the key thing that's going to either keep you in the profession or really push you out and kind of deter you for wanting to get into it. How do you kind of approach that mentorship process? Like, is it kind of on a case by case? Do you have kind of a structure of things you want to hit? And then how do you kind of provide feedback and kind of work to develop your staff?
I mean, I think with developing it's a process, and much like with training, there's no one way to build that relationship. And I believe in treating those young interns, those people that come in and work for you, as they deserve and some level want to be treated. And I say deserve and want because one, you have to supply them with that ego, that what is their love language? How do they want to be embraced every day versus how they deserve to be treated, which is important as well. A young man or young woman who shows up early and prepared and, whatever, they deserve to be treated differently. And so I think that you have to take it, again, on a case-by-case basis. And building a staff, the thing I've struggled with here, and I know Curtis, I've told Curtis about this many times, is in a college setting, I would say, staff education, 11 o'clock Thursday, be there. And that meant everyone at 11 o'clock was sitting their shirt tucked in, shoes tied, ready to go. Here, I have 4 full-time staff members and probably 15 part-time people. And of my 15 part-time people, half of them basically rely on this as their full-time income and do pretty well. And, they get a lot of hours. And then the other half have full-time jobs. I have a young lady that works at FedEx as an accountant. I have a young lady who's a pharmacist with UPMC, University of Pittsburgh Medical Center. I have a gentleman that does the website for the local newspaper. So if I say 11 o'clock Thursday, we're having a staff meeting, they all look at me like, huh? And so I'll give you, this Friday, we're trying now every opposing meeting to open it to everyone. So we are discussing right now, one of our struggles right now is our lifting classes are booming. Our cardio classes are just struggling. We're talking about 3 people in class. And it's like, we need to have more than that. So I said, let's open ideas. Let's go. I threw a couple on the table we're going to try. And I said, let's start with these and let's see what else we can do to get more people in our cardio classes. The lifting classes, killing it. Cardio classes, like I said, just kind of putzing along a little bit. Yoga, same thing. So we opened a meeting to all of our staff members. So I said from 11 to 12, we're meeting this Friday. And then at 12 o'clock, we're doing CPR research for anyone who needs it. And I'll have half of our staff there. That's a challenge. Like, I'm a strength coach. What do you mean half my staff? Why is every person not here? Well, because that person has a full-time job, but they make more than I do. They can't leave their work. So I've learned that here is it's a very different world. But I think, again, just getting to know each person, communicating on their level of communication. I'm not saying you have to read the love languages and say, okay, you're an acts of service person, but I think having a basic understanding what each person's wants and needs are and trying to fulfill those, trying to serve them as well as serving the people you're training. I many times have had people say to me, why, your interns are great. Why are they so great? I'm like, I have no idea. And I think one of the mistakes made in strength conditioning as I look back that I don't know if I had great interns or it was I just told them to go coach. Like, it was because I didn't have a choice. We didn't have any staff. I had a staff of 2 and 30 athletes. What do you do? Okay, everyone get out there and coach a little bit. Whereas I think a lot of times the strength coach comes in and says, all right, your job's not to coach for the first 6 weeks. You sit and watch and you learn terminology here and I don't know why my voice went Southern when I went to strength coach. It just becomes the SEC all of a sudden. But, and I think then it's not, again, like you said, they're not humans. They're not light switch. Okay, now go coach. I took you from off to on. Hit the button. Go coach. It's a dimmer switch. And then why aren't you coaching? And then you yell at the kid for not coaching. Well, you told them not to coach for 6 weeks. They're not an on-off switch. So maybe if you had said to them from day one, coach, and let them grow into themselves and let them screw up. We called it body weight row and you called it inverted pull-up. Who cares? Again, this is where I would lighten it. Like, do I care? I'll give you a great example. Roll over, stretch, roll back, sit up, reach out in front of you. CJ, who I love, and I want to punch him in the face sometimes, calls it cannonball. It's just dumb. But whenever he goes cannonball, everyone starts doing rollover stretch. I'm like, well, it works. It's not a cannonball. That's not the name of the exercise. Squats are still squats no matter how many times you call them deep knee bends. So I think, again, I've said this. I said it today to a group, trust and respect. Trust your people, show them respect, ask for their trust, earn their trust, and earn their respect. I think you should freely give trust and respect and at the same time, try every day to earn it from everyone else. That's a great way to start any relationship with a young, just anyone.
I like that. I've cannonball is kind of funny. Everybody calls it something different.
Yeah.
Hey, but I found it worked. With my old women's lacrosse team, we would do the same thing. I would say something and I kind of demo it and they would be like, oh, like, I think it was like heel touches one time. We were doing core as a finisher and they're like, oh, it's kind of like how a penguin walks. And I was like, all right, screw this. I'm just going to turn every core exercise into an animal. And we did that for like a week. And I was like, all right, I'll just stick with this forever.
Yeah, we got it. And but that's good coaching. You rode the wave that was given to you. The kids, they probably bought in, had a little fun, a little laugh with it. You became a human. That's good coaching.
Yeah. I hope it worked, but you kind of said it. And I would agree too. Like, a lot of the people that have come out of your tutelage have gone on to coach and maybe not gone on to like big Division I universities or whatever you guys want to call it, big time, that maybe they've just gone to a different career or found out they've been able to take things from their experience and apply it to being a lawyer or whatever it ends up being. But when you're looking for mentee, like when you're looking a young coach looking for a mentor, what are some of the kind of key things you're looking for to make sure that it's a good experience? And then on the flip side for you, like what kind of solidifies that this is a good mentee? Because you said like you want it to be a two-way street. So you want to take from them as much as you're trying to give to them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's like a job interview. You're hopefully asking questions that are asking, is this person going to be good? But I also add this: I don't look for much when someone's coming in the door, especially when we're talking about an intern. And I'll tell you why. You're coming in as an intern. I personally, and I have friends that do it. I have strength coaches I very much respect it. Like, this intern had a typo in a resume. Blah. Well, you bring them in to educate them. There's an opportunity to educate. So to me, when you bring an intern in, know they're a human being who's 20 years old, who's young, who's fresh off the street. I know strength coaches who, and I don't agree with it, who they're asking physiological questions and philosophical questions. What's your philosophy? You're 19, 20, 21, 20, whatever. If you have a philosophy, you better just pump the brakes, quote Ice Cube, check yourself, because you're too young to have a philosophy. And I'm not saying that to be an idiot, but you haven't had enough life experience to say, here's what I believe. I'm, double your age and I don't have that. I'm still working through what's right and what's wrong. So I think, understanding that it's okay to be human and be imperfect. I've had interns who have fizzled out, who within the first 3 weeks quit showing up. Okay, that happens. They're gone. See ya. I've had interns who are some of my best friends. So I do handle a little differently, where I tend to be probably a lot more forgiving with those young people. Even here at work, we had a young lady who was a student athlete at George Washington. Now she's in med school at Pitt, and she messed up. She missed a class here. She just dropped the ball. And I called her and didn't answer her phone. Texted her. It was on a Saturday. We had, just a class going on and no answer. I was like, that's odd. So I left her voicemail. So call me when you get a chance. She calls me. And I was like, hey. She's like, hey, what's up? And I was like, you missed your class today. And she's like, what do you mean? I said, check the schedule. And she's like, oh my God. Oh, I did. Oh my God. Well, what do I have to do? I said, well, call the person and apologize. Maybe offer to buy them coffee and we're good. She goes, well, is that it? And I was like, yeah. She's like, well, but I missed. I said, I understand. And when someone else misses, you're going to cover for that. And when someone else misses, you're going to cover them. They're going to buy you a cup of coffee and apologize. And it was funny. She was freaking out, texting me, I'm sorry. So I immediately called Curtis, number 2 guy here. And I said, hey, this young lady's going to call you because she's freaking out. And he goes, she just texted me. She's apologizing. I said, she doesn't need to. We're all human. We make mistakes. It's not that you screwed up that matters. It's what you did after you screwed up. And I think that lesson, you take that from the field. If you're looking at football, you missed the block. Do you come back and pick up the next guy and block that person? Or do you pout? If you come back and hit maybe if your job is to block this guy and you miss it, maybe the tailback juked him out. Maybe not. I don't know. But now you have an opportunity. Go hit the next person. Is that your person? No, but you know what? It doesn't matter at this point. I'm just going to blow up a hole. Whatever sport you're playing, you can think about that instance where I made a mistake, but hustle will make up for my mistake. Hustle and then own it. And I love when you see an athlete coming off going, me. I like when a quarterback throws an interception and goes me, or a wide receiver misses a ball and it's intercepted and you see, me, it was on me. I did it. I'll get it next time. And I think that's the relationship you have to have with those young people. It's okay. You messed up. We'll move forward, And I think people are always shocked I'm not freaking out anymore. Like, no, you made a mistake. When like I said, I was, for the whole world, no, I was 20 minutes late to this. Why? Because I had the wrong time written down. You called me. I looked at my phone. You texted me. I was like, what? Oh, I'll be there with you. My bad. Made a mistake. Try not to make them, but when you make them, apologize. Own it, move forward.
No doubt. Yeah, we'll get a coffee when I come to Pittsburgh.
I'll mail one to California.
Perfect. Hey, but that's a good point. You talked about loosening the reins as a coach, and I think that comes definitely with experience. And I mean, I've fallen victim to it when I was young too. I mean, I'm still young, but to kind of blow up on people or not realize that they're humans and things happen, and to kind of put it in perspective about what's going on and realize that someone made a mistake. And I think that's a good point to say for like anybody that you're trying to mentor, any mentee, like if you own up to it, just like we talked about with the evaluations, if you own up to a mistake and you're willing to learn and continue pushing forward and actually want to get better, and you're honest about it, and you apologize, whatever it ends up being, like that's the type of person you want. They're continually looking to get better. They're continuing looking to make sure that they're doing the right thing and always improving. But as a mentor, you got to make sure that you're not so quick to just kind of shut them down, because especially for some coaches, like that's a confidence killer, and that might be why some people get out of the profession in the very beginning, just realizing like, oh, I'm never going to make it in here. And it's the same as training. Like if you start to look at like, I want to be a world champion and deadlift whatever the record is now, like 1,100 pounds or whatever it is.
It's absurd.
If you start at that point as a young coach and be like, I want to be coach at so and so, like school, like football, number one guy making $500,000. If you start there and in your first day you're getting chewed out, you might just give up. So being able to actually have a conversation and kind of build on that progress and be okay making mistakes, that's the way to start. So
Absolutely.
great points. Hey, you kind of talked about it. I know for a fact that you give a lot back to the profession. I mean, you're selfless with your time, including right now. You've been on way too many podcasts to talk about. That's why I needed to make sure I mix this up a little bit so you're not
I appreciate
answering the same questions. But I mean, from writing articles, I mean, there's so many on EliteFTS and different places, speaking at conferences. Why is it kind of so important for you to give back to the profession? Was it kind of laid into you from some of your mentors? And then also on that side, where are kind of some of the resources that you dive into to kind of bring more information to yourself? Because I know most of it's outside of the strength and conditioning profession.
I mean, in all honesty, it probably started more so in ego. Same as, like I said about strength and conditioning. It was like, hey, look at my name in print. And I think most people, it is ego. But then I think you grow into learning what you can give, even though your ego is why you started something. And so I do believe I probably got into the wrong profession, strength and conditioning, because I definitely don't always think like every strength coach out there. And so I try to be the heretic in the room. I try to be the guy who says, well, wait a second. No, what about this other side, or it's not all about this, and try to be the heretic, but the respectful heretic at that. That we have, I'll give you an example. Summer Strong went on down at Sornex. Like, it looks like I've never been. I've been invited numerous times to go. I've never been invited to speak or anything, but just like, Bert and Pops have always been cool to me, and always like, hey, come on down, hang out with us. It's a lot of fun. And I mean, even from like their early days, 15 years ago, and they're like, Hammer, it's 100 of us. Come on down. I've never made it. And then I see, people make fun of that. And I'm like, why? It's a bunch of people getting together, doing things that they love together. And I just think it's human nature, and to put down others, not just successes, but like belief systems, views of the world, if you will. And, whether it be the CSCCA, the NSCA, Sornex, Summer Strong, Elites, learn to train things, whatever they are, whenever I see one, I always see that person poking fun at it, and that to me is my job in the industry to say, no, this is not perfect. This event is, sure, it's creating some idiosyncratic thinking that maybe I don't agree with in training, but it's a group of people coming together, having fun, learning something together. Does it make it perfect? No. Is the CSCCA perfect? Absolutely not. Is the NSCA perfect? Man, they've made so many mistakes throughout the years. We couldn't even begin to discuss those. Is, EliteFTS perfect? Absolutely not. But we can steal from each of those. And I think the tribalism that most people get into doesn't allow that to occur. So often it becomes a tribalistic thing. I am a this, you've heard it. I'm a that guy. I'm a this guy. What does that even mean? Like, you don't have your own thoughts. So I think my hopefully voice in the profession has been that, to be a critical think guy and decide what is right in the moment. Sit down and take in the information and go, okay, here's what I think is right. And when we get down the road, I'll realize where I was mistaken and we'll adjust a little bit. And so I do think that's very important. Honestly, I listen to a ton of podcasts. I read a ton of books. I don't like books on tape or on CD, whatever, on my phone, because it's a different medium. And if you listen to a podcast, it's a conversation. It's someone conversing. If you listen to a book on recorded, it's meant to be read, and books are meant to be flipped back and forth. So to me, I'm not a big fan of books, listening to audiobooks, because I think that the medium, very few have to do with strength conditioning, very few. But it can be everything. Like I said, right now it's a thing about Russian oligarchs, because it was something I started reading about 8 years ago and just kind of kept down that path. But yeah, I think just diversify reading. I always get the question, what should I read? I go, I don't know, what interests you? Go to the library and start looking at the books. Just there's a sea, just pick them. So I think if people just did that, I will say, it's okay to start with the success books, the self-help books, which is, for the last 20 years has been a, explosion of those. Grow beyond those. And I'm not saying you shouldn't read them and you should stop ever reading them. But if every book you read has a title like The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck, that's fine to read that. But it's not, it's just a way of thinking. It's hopefully helping you along your path. I think you need deeper books than that. And I'm just picked on that book because of the stupid title. But I think so often people read that book. I think a very wise man who, if you look at his reading, is very diverse, is Mike Hill. Me and Mike, have often spoken about this, where Michael Hill at Georgetown said, Hammer, I've had people say, I don't actually read what I post I read. There's no way you can read that much. He's like, well, yeah, but I don't watch much TV. I have my life. I read and I go to work and I play with my family. That's my life. And I was like, yeah, it sounds like me. So I think, just diversifying where you're gaining your knowledge from, what books you're reading, what magazines, what articles. Social media is wonderful. The problem with social media is that, again, tribalism occurs. I read an article in the local newspaper. So there's a band that's only famous in Pittsburgh. Weird situation. They're called the Clarks. Very famous in Pittsburgh. They pack the house in Pittsburgh. They've done it for 30 years. No one knows them outside Pittsburgh. They were in town. The lead singer now lives in Charlotte, North Carolina. I've met him a few times. Nice guy. He was at a local diner eating. And there was an article about how some woman walked up to the lady working diner and said, is that Scott Blasey of the Clarks? And she said, yes. And she said, I want to pay for his meal, and I want you to take this note instead of a bill. And the note said, I bought your meal. Thank you for all the happiness you've brought this city. Very nice story, right? I'm sitting there going to the bathroom, when we read a paper, reading it, and it goes to the comment section. Never read the comment section, because people are saying, oh, that's wonderful. I remember I saw them live at this show and blah, 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 blah. So cool. And then someone says, a lot of people work hard. Why didn't anyone buy me a meal? And I was like, maybe if you brought happiness, someone would have bought you a meal, buddy. The tribalism of people is so bad with that. It's like, and I'm reading, then people are commenting back like, you're an idiot. And I'm like, I don't agree, but I'm not going to say that on a comment section of a newspaper. But then I get trapped in a wormhole of reading this crap. It's like, it was just a simple story saying, hey, this guy who brought happiness to a city for 30 years got a free cheeseburger for $12 at a mediocre diner. That's awesome. Good story. Clap. We're out. Nothing more. And again, people had to bring in their own views. Me. Why didn't anyone buy my hamburger? I work hard every day. No one cares about your hamburger. That's why. I don't know why. So I think that's the take-home point.
No, it's good. I mean, since I'm so involved in and like enveloped in strength conditioning, it's hard to understand that there are a lot of tribalistic views all over, but so diversifying your education and like and what you read and kind of the information you take in and realizing that you definitely don't have to read the comment section for everything is
I'll read the comment section.
that's great. That's great advice. I love that though. So kind of how we wrap up the show, we end it like any good training session. So I got 4 quarters for you, 4 questions, and overtime. So you can take as long as you want, or you can go rapid fire. But you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So biggest influence in strength and conditioning and biggest influence in powerlifting.
Personally? As a person? Okay. Powerlifting, probably Dave Tate from what he's brought in EliteFTS. I'm going to give a shout out to my man, Tim Contos, wearing my Contos strength shirt right here. Tim's my dude. So probably Tim, who I was a GA under back in, I like to say '01 because it makes you sound really old. But so Tim down at VCU, very underappreciated guy. Learned a lot from him. We have shared so many assistants and interns and stuff over the years, and Tim's been a great friend. And through him, I met Jim Rooney, who I actually talked to the other day, was a great strength coach at Richmond. He's now a high school strength coach. So, Dave Tate, Tim Contos.
Awesome. Yeah, I saw the Contos shirt. I've seen him putting some stuff out, so that's awesome. So what can you be found doing when you're not coaching or competing? I know you got a lot of stuff going on. What are some of the go-to hobbies outside of maybe mountain biking and reading?
Mountain biking, I play drums. I'm a bad guitarist, man. I'm bad at guitar, but I still play it. Most of the time, honestly, it's with my son at this point. I have one child. I'm only gonna have one child, and I try to enjoy every moment of it. I'll tell you, our school is about a mile from our house, and he goes to before school at the YMCA, and then gets bused over to the school. So 4 days a week, I will ride my bike and actually hold his bike next to me and ride his bike as well down to the school, the mile, so that we can ride our bikes home or even ride over to the bakery by our house and get a cookie or whatever. And some people, it's like people come like, you're the greatest dad ever. I'm like, no, I'm just the dude good enough at riding bikes. I can ride 2 bikes at once. I mean, to me, throw away work-life balance and be present whatever you're doing when you're doing it. Stop thinking about work-life balance. You'll never get it. It's futile. Get with your family, with your kids, get with whatever. Have fun.
Awesome. You said before you got in the wrong profession. So if you weren't coaching, what do you think you would be doing? And if you could go pro in something other than powerlifting, what sport would you pick?
Well, I have a trainer here, my man Ethan, who's a drummer for a metal band named Steel Nation. And they're the opening act. Like, people know who they are. They got some CDs out there and stuff. And I'm always jealous. I always want to be a drummer. I am a drummer, but a known drummer. So either a drummer or a chef. I think I could be a heck of a chef.
You'd be surprised how many people have said chef. It's like the go-to
one. Seems
one.
Fun until you have to do it every Friday, Saturday night when you're. It's like it sounds good, kind of like coaching, until like Friday night and you're cooking everyone's food and you're like, this sucks.
That's the only thing I think about. It's like the same as programming. Like I can program for anybody, but I program for myself and it's dog shit. So
it's terrible.
Like if I'm gonna be an executive chef somewhere, I'm probably just gonna go home and like whip up tacos for myself, as boring as possible.
I love tacos.
Oh yeah. Hey, so I know this one kind of, but I'm also kind of interested to see if it shifted at all. If you were setting up an ideal training day, what's your go-to music or PR song, and what's your post-training meal look like?
PR song still, it's, as my son has told his kindergarten and first grade teacher and got in trouble for, the greatest song ever penned is Destroy Everything. Hatebreed, obviously. But you know what? I'm going to throw out, let me give you some curveballs here. Let's see. You got, there is definitely, like, Drake is terrible. but like there are some really good rappers out there. Lupe Fiasco, phenomenal rapper. People like that. When I come down from a lift, I'm a huge Jason Isbell fan. Kind of that alt country world. And then afterwards, it's Chipotle. I mean, who doesn't like Chipotle? Now, I don't eat it as much as I used to, but it's so damn good. You get the guac, you pay the extra buck, whatever, for the guac. You got to go Chipotle.
All right. So last one I got for you for overtime is either favorite under the bar or favorite coaching memory.
I mean, coaching memory, I can remember benches and squat. I'll tell a dirty story. Favorite coaching memory, I had a young man, defensive end, who actually was in town recently. His wife was a former student of mine. He was a student of mine. They live in Delaware. I hadn't talked to him 5 years. They said, we're in town. They were at the bar that is 30 yards from where I'm sitting right now. Family went over. We had a great, we were at the wedding back in the day. Had a great meal with them and some former athletes, but he was going to do a meet with me. So the season ends and we're doing bench, and he was, 500-pound bencher. So strong dude. And I'll never forget, it was 475 on the bar. And our bars were all beat up because we had no money. And he's pressing and the bar rolls low because it had a little spin to it. And so his wrist kicks back with 475 and I had no side squatters. So I was like afraid, he's going to die. He's going to throw, with 475. So I jumped on his face and caught the bar onto my thighs. And I'm sitting on his face, parts of me. And he doesn't move. And I'm holding a bar and it's like teetering. And there are other people in the room like, get over here. And I'm like, Chris, are you okay down there? And Chris goes, I'm not going to move. Your balls are on my cheek. And he was like this. And I was like, okay, but you're okay. He's like, I'm fine. Just get the bar off. And it was like on my thigh. Like I caught the bar. I don't know if it's my favorite coaching memory, but dirty story that I probably wouldn't have told if I was still a college strength coach, because people are like, oh my God, I said balls. And as far as lifting, I did a meet at Nick Showman's where the guy squatting before me was at the end of a flight. I was the top flight. His opening squat was like 10-10, and I wrap, and I'm all wrapped up, ready to go. He's getting under the bar. I'm getting ready, and the guy decides that the floor is not acceptable, and they have to strip 10-10 off the bar, move the monolift, put down a new floor. And one of my guys who's with one of my training partners like, should I unwrap you? I'm like, no, leave it wrapped. And I sat there wrapped for like 15 minutes while they did all this. And even Nick Showman's like, get his wraps off. What is wrong? Hammer, get your wraps off. I'm like, nope, I hate being wrapped. Leave them on. And he's like, you're not going to be able to squat. I'm like, I'll be fine. And I grinded out the ugliest squat of my life. Like I wasn't missing. I was not missing. I don't even remember what the weight was. Who cares? But I was not going to miss that rep. And it was the hardest rep because my legs were purple. I think I passed on my third after that because I was like my feet are still recovering. But I hate being wrapped. I hate knee wraps. We're the most uncomfortable thing. Like I'd rather you punch me in the face than me have to put knee wraps on.
Those are hilarious. I have not heard any of those ones. I refuse to get my knees wrapped. I haven't tried that. I don't want to drip too far into the to all the gear. So I'm already a gear whore with strongman, but a deadlift suit already sucks. I'm trying not to touch my knees.
Yeah. So knee wraps are fun, but they are painful. There's nothing. They just suck. So
no doubt. That was a good spot though. I like that. Hey, so like I said, you're very vocal in the community, even being out of college. I think even more so now. You got a ton of articles on EliteFTS, but how can people kind of reach out to you if they have any more questions or want to follow along on your journey?
Find us at Union Fitness or Todd at Union Fitness, my email. I give my cell phone every person on earth, so I don't care. 571-438-2976. Text me. Say, hey, it's whoever. I realize I give my phone out too easily because I sent an email to our 900 members here at one point with my personal cell number on it, and they all put it on Instagram. And I was like, what are you guys doing? They're like, you sent it to 900 people. I was like, good point. Don't care. And, it's year 2021. Like, we all need to be able to contact each other. And I will tell you, if you email me, I have 16 unread emails right now. I hate it. I don't have it on my phone. I don't like email. Email is for old people. Just, call or text, man. I hate email. So, whatever, if you email me, I'll contact you. Find me on all the social media crap. I enjoy it because I think it could be some good education to it. I think it's a great way to communicate to others. I think it's a great way to share information.
Awesome. Well, like I said, Coach, I've been meaning to get you on for a while. I'm looking forward to seeing now Hammer's book club alongside Hill's book club, because that's definitely long overdue. But it's been great to have you on today. Like I said, I've wanted to do this for a while now, and I've always read your articles and love what you've been putting on, and all the information you provide. You've been a great resource, even if it's not been a formal mentorship. So I appreciate you coming on today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Awesome. Take care, Coach.
Bye-bye.
That's it for this episode of The Strength Game. Thank you again to this week's guest and to our sponsors, Cerberus Strength. Be sure to connect and keep up with our guests at the links in the description below. Remember to subscribe to us on Apple and Google Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast provider to stay up to date on all future episodes. Also, check us out on YouTube and CoachO'Brien.com, where you can find all the video versions of these episodes, as well as show notes, episode schedule, and much more. Comments, ratings, and reviews are always welcome and appreciated. Thanks again for tuning in, and be sure to join us next week for another great episode of The Strength Game.